Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's Dirt Weekly Check-In. My name is Andrew Trueblood, and I am the director of DC's Office of Planning. And thank you for joining us today. We're here because on April 23rd, Mayor Muriel Bowser submitted her update of the district's comprehensive plan proposal to the District of Columbia Council. The adoption of this comp plan is, in a responsible and timely manner, is critical because it will help guide the district's budget and address acute needs that we have, including things like equity, infrastructure, and housing. It's especially pressing given the issues of project delays that we've seen through litigation that are made possible by the current outdated old policies. The mayor has stated that an updated comprehensive plan is even more critical now, given the current disruptions that the COVID-19 pandemic is causing for the district's residents and businesses. As we move from response to reopening and recovery, this comp plan will serve as an essential guide to ensure the district not only recovers, but emerges more in line with our values, stronger, healthier, safer, more resilient, and more equitable than ever. The Council's timely consideration and passage of this bill is critical in 2020. Today, I am joined by Deputy Director Anita Cozart from the Office of Planning, as well as Colleen Hawkinson, who leads the DuPont Circle Business Improvement District, and Mustafa Abdul Salam, who is a community leader in Ward 8 and an ANC member representing ANC 8C05. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to give a brief overview of the comprehensive plan and then turn it over to Anita to talk a little bit more about how it relates to businesses and recovery. And then Colleen and Mustafa will have a chance to talk about how it intersects with their work. It's really critical. We have found it's critical. The comprehensive plan is so large and it touches so many parts of the district that we really want to make sure that everybody understands how it touches and connects to their daily lives or their work lives. The comprehensive plan that we have in the District of Columbia is required by the Home Rule Act. And the current plan was a vision that was created in 2004 and a plan that was passed in 2006 with a small amendment in 2011. What I can say is when we started this process in 2015, the context of 2004 and 2006 were a very different city. The city was really just emerging from the Financial Control Board. Data about its growth maybe had just started, if at all, but it was a very different context for the district. And we found when we started this process in 2015, 2016, it was critical to update. But I would say, especially given the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the First Amendment protests that we've seen, it's even more critical to update it in line with today's values. What's critical, so I'll get to that in a second. If we go to the next slide, what is the comp plan? This is, many cities do something like this, which is really to look across the city's different systems, like housing, like infrastructure, transportation, also built environment questions like historic preservation and urban design, as well as looking at areas of the city. And the comprehensive plan divided the city into 10 different areas. These were divided up in 2006. And they might look like wards. They're very similar to our wards, but they're a little bit different for a few reasons. Number one is they were grouped together more based on the issues that these neighborhoods would face rather than for political reasons. But more importantly, they were created because we know that wards change every 10 years after the census, which is a reminder that everybody should complete the census at census2020.gov. And our wards will be changing next year. And so in order to allow us to plan for the long term, this is a long-term document for us to think 20 or 25 years in the future, we really need boundaries that don't change. One thing that I think many businesses are particularly interested in addition to those area elements, are really the maps that come with that are submitted along with the comprehensive plan. One is called a generalized policy map. This outlines different parts of the cities, different types of corridors, like retail corridors or neighborhood corridors, also employment centers. But something that we've done, a few things we've done new in the proposal is probably most importantly outlined the boundaries of Douglas Commonwealth, the future 51st state. But we've also included areas of resilience planning focus and of planning focus. And these include, for example, areas like Congress Heights in Ward 8, areas that Mustafa is thinking about, as well as critical questions around our floodplain. So why this is important for many businesses is the future land use map shows it really guides zoning. While zoning is independent of the district, of the mayor or of the council, it has to be in line with the comprehensive plan and with this future land use map. And so it helps say what can go where or really what can't go where, and is a really critical component of how we expect to achieve our goals, whether it's around housing production and affordable housing or around recovery and economic development. So there are a number of critical updates there. In fact, we found that we've only changed about 6% of the land, of the designations, but we think that will achieve about 15% more capacity, especially for housing in the city. In the updates, I've already mentioned a few of these already, but it's worth noting that the major updates, the major ways that we're trying to bring this up into the 2020s is through, I would say, 5 themes, I'm sorry, 4 of which we've discussed with the public when we did our public review in the fall, and 1 of which we've added since then. So I've mentioned housing. Housing is critical. Housing stability, housing preservation, the production of housing and equitable housing opportunities across the city are all built into this comprehensive plan update. What we know is the vibrance of our city and the future of our city depends on our residents being able to live here. And as importantly, what the comp plan anticipates is not only us, but our children and grandchildren have an opportunity to live in this city and call it home. Another important element is equity and racial justice. This is everything from thinking about housing equity, as I mentioned, to a whole new element, a whole new section around health equity that we added actually before, but I think is even more important today, and thinking about equity and access across the city. And we also talk about resilience, obviously making sure that we can address shocks and stressors, including things like COVID-19, and public resources, helping align our investments in resources to make sure that they're serving our residents in the long run and they're aligned with where our city is going. So those were the 4 that we talked about in the fall with many stakeholders, including those we'll be hearing from in a minute. But what we've added since then, what has been new and what we didn't anticipate is a section about COVID-19 and recovery. When we reviewed the comp plan, as COVID was happening in February and March, and we were preparing to submit it to council, we found that for the most part, it really does address the questions of COVID. It's meant to be long-term. It's meant to think beyond any particular issue or problem, and it's meant to help us address all issues and problems, no matter the ones that we cannot see. So we think there was a lot of language in there already about being resilient, about how we can make sure that we continue to grow and have are set to recover. But we did do a few things. We changed the language around disasters, which had been mostly focused on natural disasters and emergencies like that. We broadened it to include things like public health emergencies. And we also added a couple of policies and actions around monitoring and tracking this particular COVID-19 situation. We know that this is unprecedented. We don't know how it will end, but working through with DIRT, for example, working through that will be critical to make sure that we are able to proactively move forward and buttress our businesses and support our residents through this, and build back stronger. So I think that is why you might have asked, why are we hearing about the comp plan during a DIRT call? I think what I would say is the comprehensive plan is critical for recovery because it will set the long-term vision for where we want to go as a city, as communities, as neighbors, as stakeholders, that can help us align our policies, our investments, our programs into the long-term future. So where it is today, where's the comp plan? As I mentioned, we started almost 5 years ago with town halls, with engagement. We've heard from over 10,000 stakeholders, including many of you, hopefully, who are on the line in that time, whether it was through our open call to make amendments, whether it was through our campaign about values and themes, whether it was through our public review this fall, which really prioritized hearing from ANCs. We've heard from you that your input has really helped shape this to make it a community document that I think we can all be proud of. And it's something that we submitted to council in the fall. One thing to note, you may have heard about the comp plan before in terms of the framework element, which is the first chapter that really sets up the frame. It helps define some of the terms, helps talk about high level what we're trying to achieve. That was passed by council last fall. So what we're talking about is the remaining elements and maps that are at council and that we hope that we expect to have passed in this year. It's in council review. We're hoping, we've heard that there will be a hearing in the fall from the council, but we're hoping we're excited to have that hearing. That'll be an opportunity for stakeholders, including you, to weigh in if you want. And then hopefully council will be able to move on it before the end of the calendar year. And then is the fun part, which is actually implementing the plan, which is doing the community-based planning efforts, which is reviewing it in terms of, or helping it inform the budget, which is doing the work, the dirt work, the monitoring work of actually of making it happen. So that is the timeline and where we're going. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to our Deputy Director, Anita Cozart, who can share a little bit more about the nexus between the comp plan and businesses.
Thank you, Andrew, and good afternoon, Andrew, and good afternoon, Colleen and Mustafa, and to folks who are listening. I'm excited to tell you that there are several parts of the comp plan that really have guidance that's related to the business sector and neighborhood commercial activity, and some of them you will see on the slide that's here. These include the economic development chapter, as well as area elements inside the comp plan. And then for some businesses, chapters like land use, urban design, housing, as well as the community services and facilities element may also have some relevance to you. I'm going to highlight just a couple of examples. There are many, many in our comp plan proposal. But in particular, I'm going to highlight some that are related to businesses that are struggling in this pandemic. So we know that technology and globalization and capital access, among other factors, are some trends that are really challenging many small and local businesses, especially those owned by people of color. And that pandemic has magnified those challenges for our district businesses. So the comp plan proposal includes guidance about the delivery of resources to support the retail environment. One comp plan action that I want to highlight is to create a neighborhood commercial district toolkit that businesses can use to navigate the changing markets, to leverage public space assets, to build market strength, and to implement creative placemaking and temporary uses. In addition, there are policies to expand opportunities for small and local businesses to use public space for well-designed sidewalk cafes and temporary markets for vending. And continuing to the next slide, there's additional policies I want to share. We know that locally owned grocery stores and food hubs are really important aspects of a strong economy and contribute to healthy living for district residents, especially households that are food insecure. And we know food insecurity is another issue made more difficult for our residents during the pandemic. The Community Services and Facilities chapter of the comp plan includes policies and actions to expand local food availability in grocery retail. And lastly, we know that our diverse and complex business sector needs a range of tools and resources, especially in communities where business growth has been stagnant for a long time. The land use chapter of the comp plan proposal provides guidance for targeting housing and community development resources to catalyze economic growth, particularly in communities with high unemployment and poverty rates. So those were just a handful of examples given our time. And there are many other policies and actions that are developed to support the business sector. And so I really encourage you to take a look at the comp plan proposal to learn more. You can find it on the website Plan.dc.gov. And there are many ways to access some of those resources. And it's also important to note, as Andrew shared, in April 2020, the DC Council began the process to adopt the comp plan. The next steps include public hearings and a council vote, and the best outcome would be to complete that process by the end of 2020. So we encourage you to get involved in that process, get familiar with the comp plan, and be in touch with your council members about moving forward with public hearings and a council vote on that schedule. So there's more that we can share in our questions and answers, but definitely want to have a chance for our guest speakers to share a little bit.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Anita. I want to remind everybody on the phone line that our phone lines are open. If you have a question, please press 0 to be placed in the queue, and you can ask a question of any of us here right now. So with that, I'd like to introduce Colleen Hawkinson, who is the head of the DuPont Circle Business Improvement District. Colleen, we have most recently been working together on questions of public space, streeteries, and the DuPont Circle bid, but obviously your work goes much further than that. And thinking long term, is really involved with the neighborhood commercial district that you have. So we're interested to hear from you about your work and about your efforts and how the comp plan can support what you're doing.
Great, thank you for that. And I, for one, am very excited to learn more about the commercial district toolkit that Anita had brought up. I just want to thank Mayor Bowser and DMPED Director Falticchio, as well as Planning Director Trueblood, for inviting me to speak today. Given the long-range timeline and the expansive topics covered by the comprehensive plan, sometimes it's difficult to think about how it affects us on a day-to-day basis. But at its core, the comprehensive plan guides the issues that affect how each and every one of us experience Washington, D.C. And then it's these experiences that provide incentives for people living in D.C. to stay, for others to move to D.C., and still for others to work and play here. So the comprehensive plan is an important guide for a diverse business environment. The strategies in the document, such as repurposing public space, have already proven to be an effective tool. Perhaps one of the most well-known and popular examples of repurposed public space is the DuPont Circle Farmers Market. This is the largest farmers market in the city, and it has been operational since 1997. Once COVID began, the farmers market worked with partners, including the city, to re-establish their operations to ensure for a safe and maintaining a convenient way to get fresh food. And then more recently, phase 1 of reopening presented an opportunity for the city, bids, and individual businesses to rethink their operations. Guidelines that balance the need for reopening businesses and minimizing the spread of COVID-19 allowed the bid to repurpose 2 streets in DuPont Circle, the 1600 block of 20th Street and the 1500 block of 19th Street. Both streets currently function as an outdoor dining room. And in the 2.5 months that the DuPont streeteries have been operational, restaurants have had a substantial increase in customers. This has led to the businesses rehiring employees that had been furloughed in March. Public space has been reactivated, while at the same time keeping everyone safe. These streeteries have proven vital to the survival of these particular businesses. While the word streeteries rolls nicely off the tongue, there are other initiatives pulled together by DDOT and the Office of Planning that have also been vital to businesses over the past few months. The temporary pickup and drop-off zones and expanded sidewalk space were among the first initiatives to be utilized. The allowance for existing sidewalk cafes to increase in size has tremendously helped. The day-to-day positive impact that these initiatives have brought to not only DuPont Circle businesses, but businesses throughout numerous commercial corridors exist because they were supported in the comp plan. Small but mighty, these initiatives continue to have major and immediate impacts on the economic resiliency of Washington, D.C.'s commercial neighborhoods. And we appreciate the partnership that we have developed with the city agencies in moving these forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. Now I'd like to turn to Commissioner Abdul Salam, who we've been working with, I know, on a number of your community economic development efforts in Ward 8, and I'd love to hear more about your work and how it intersects with the comprehensive plan.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to participate in the meeting today, and thank the mayor for her leadership and the work of the planning department. So we're doing some very opportune things in Ward 8 that really, I think, is the core of what the comprehensive plan is about. Even prior to the epidemic that we're experiencing, Ward 8 had a lot of challenges, really trying to position itself for the gentrification that's happening in the community. If anything, over the last 6 months has just been heightened. But it also has made it very clear the importance of planning and the need for a plan. And it also gives us appreciation of the work around the comprehensive plan that's been done by the planning department. And the focus areas of that plan are right in target with what we need to do in the community. So we're very excited and supportive. We're beginning to start our planning process, and it will overlap with the comprehensive plan. We anticipate working with the planning department to begin to see how we can match that up. The plan is going to be community-driven from the bottom up. The residents are going to be really a key part of helping to drive the plan. But we can no longer program ourselves out of the situation that we're in. We need a plan that talks about both long-term and short-term and long-term goals that we need to deal and issues around capacity building and sustainability are very much the core. And again, it coincides with what the comprehensive plan talks about. Racial equity is very much the core of it. Until we free up the resources that we need to really support the development of Ward 8, we can't go anywhere. I mean, the community itself knows the issues, knows the problems, but have never had the resources to really tackle them in a meaningful way. So we're looking for this planning process and working with the planning department to come up with a plan that not only, talks about what we need to do going forward, but what are the resources that we need to have to do it, and how do we realign the community, particularly in light of what we know that's not working, so that we can be more effective with both the human capital and our other assets that we have in the community. So I'm really advocating that the city council really get behind supporting the plan. We can't continue to operate with a 2006 framework. The issues that we're facing now need to be addressed in the framework that has been evolved out of the comprehensive plan. So we're very optimistic that, with all the things, the way society's moving in general and the way DC is, that neighborhoods are going to get the support they need to ensure that current residents are not displaced, and that we can make sure that everybody participates with the new opportunities and the new amenities that are coming into the community. So again, I thank you for allowing me the opportunity to participate, and I'm looking forward to working with the mayor and all the different agencies, including the planning department, to make sure that Ward 8 continues to evolve and becomes a place for both the residents current residents and future residents can really live and enjoy.
Commissioner, thank you very much for that. And I think your comments really highlight to me, and I think Colleen's as well, while the Office of Planning helps put this document together, we are really a caretaker of the document, and it's only as valuable as our community stakeholders, as our business stakeholders, as our council stakeholders, as well as other agencies. It involved over 40 other plans from different agencies. Colleen, you mentioned DDOT, but we know DC Health was involved, and DPW, DPR, other agencies, DHCD were all very involved in helping us make sure that it was updated. But Commissioner, to your point, it is only as successful as it aligns with the work that you are doing, and it can support your work. And I think one of the things that we've seen is that it provides us the opportunity to connect the work of neighborhoods and communities and bids with the bigger goals and issues of the city, whether that is racial equity, as Commissioner mentioned, whether those are transportation issues or housing issues. What the comprehensive plan does is it allows us to see not only at the city level, but how we connect that to each of our neighborhoods. And I think that's a critical point to make. So I just have maybe a question for each, and then we'll go to the lines. For those on the lines, don't forget, if you have a question, please press 0 to be placed in the queue, and we will get to your questions. It's also worth mentioning, I know you might see we're having some technical difficulties with the presentation being shown. You can download the presentation, or you will be able to, at coronavirus.dc.gov/recovery. You can also will be able to see this presentation again, or this town hall again there. So Anita, let me turn to you first, which to ask, as I think we've mentioned, the comprehensive plan is comprehensive. There's a lot. You talked about the website, but tell me if I'm especially a business owner, but a resident, anyone interested, what's really the best way to delve in, to learn more, to see what this is all about?
Sure. And we acknowledge that it is a complex and dense document because it has to be comprehensive. So if you're a business owner or interested in kind of economic resilience, economic recovery, as I mentioned, the economic development chapters are important, but you really want to look at the area element for your area. And so you can use kind of the map that was shown earlier in the presentation to navigate what planning area you're in, and take a scan of that area element. In addition, if there's certain issues that you're interested in, COVID-19 recovery, we have a crosswalk that includes the array of policies that are included in the entire document that really touch on those issues of health recovery as well as economic and even social recovery as well. And then we also have similar ones around equity, similar one around resilience as well. So those are some ways. We also have some explainers. We have a frequently asked questions document. And then we have staff resources. It's true we're not in our offices, but we are available. And if you send an email to compplanupdate at dc.gov, that is an inbox that we're monitoring, and one of our staff can really assist you with some specifics that you're interested in. Or if you really are trying to find a particular issue and you can't find it, we'd be happy to help you navigate through that.
Thank you, Anita. Commissioner, I have a question for you. I think you touched on briefly, that COVID, obviously it's affected every neighborhood. We know that it has affected neighborhoods of color even more, businesses in those neighborhoods a great deal. And I don't know if you can speak to that if you want to, but also I'm interested to hear from you. What are the opportunities? What should we be thinking about? And maybe how thinking about how that connects to the comp plan, but or recovery. But what are the opportunities that we should be thinking about, especially in Ward 8? And what are you thinking about in your economic work? I think you're still muted, Commissioner. It's good. At least I can see you talking.
Okay, sorry, Jen. And that's a good question because, again, as I mentioned, the core of the issues facing Ward 8, as a lot of communities of low-income populations of color, is the lack of access to resources, particularly capital, and the importance of linking all those things that connect. For example, until Ward 8 creates a more viable small business base, we're always going to have a tremendous amount of unemployment or underemployment, which maintains the poverty, and it also impacts things like public safety and just the quality of life, because small businesses are your economic engine, and the reality in Ward 8 is that 95% or at least 90% of our activities from an economic development side tends to be of a nonprofit nature. Which does not, build wealth. It doesn't really employ a labor force that you, would like. So we need to create more of a balance in Ward 8 around business development as relates to, encouraging more entrepreneurship and making capital available and using capital as an incentive for a small business to come to a place like Ward 8, so that we can create a much more of a business environment, and also looking at opportunities like St. Elizabeth and the emergence of the new hospital as economic engines that can drive small business development and making sure that we're linking those business opportunities that come out of those engines back into the community for entrepreneurial opportunities. So I think we need to begin to recognize that communities like Ward 8 have a lot of assets that are not being tapped, and the community has not been able to take advantage of. So it's really rechanging our thinking, developing a different strategy that moves away from deficit thinking and more asset-based thinking. And if we do that, then those opportunities, I think, will be much more available.
Thank you. That's very helpful, and I think helps highlight really the nexus of comp plan and planning efforts, recovery efforts, and really community-based efforts, how those can all come together at this moment, and really have to come together. We have to come together. So Colleen,
I agree.
Thank you. So actually, before I go to Colleen, I'm just going to remind anyone who's interested to press 0 if you're on the line. But Colleen, so you talked about some of these temporary or kind of currently temporary interventions, streeteries, closing streets. I'm interested in how you're thinking about the long term at DuPont Circle. What does this look like? Are there changes that you think will become permanent in some way or another, or will really change the trajectory of DuPont Circle?
It's a great question, and it's what we've started working on just recently. Is given the success, and once we had the data to back up that yes, these were successful, the question now is, okay, the streeteries are approved through the public health emergency, but what does it look like if they continue even beyond once there's a new normal and once the public health emergency it has been stopped? And so it's really taking everything into account that we've done and thinking of it less than temporary, but how to continue this momentum to make some of these public repurposing of public space more permanent. Also the initiative that brought a lot of groups together. So the bids working with the ANCs and even the Main Streets, the intensity and the just the importance of it from day one pushed everything forward, and there was cooperation among all parties. And so now that we have that experience in such a dire situation, I think will be much easier to get things like this through on a permanent basis as we move forward.
Great, thank you. So now it looks like we have a couple of questions on the line. So I will say your name and then we will unmute you, and you can go ahead and ask your question. So we have Daniel from Ward 2.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good. Good, thanks, guys. Yeah, I had a question mainly based around parks and public space regarding organized sports. Just looking to see if there was any plan in the comp plan plus COVID of that being able, or us being able to roll that out again, as it's a pretty large community in DC. And in Maryland and Virginia, they've started it back up. So I just wanted to see if DC if we were going to be able to as well.
Daniel, thank you for the question. I would say that I know that thinking about how we use our parks and open spaces in terms of reopen is very much on the minds of the agencies, Department of Parks and Rec, as well as DC Health and the mayor, and that will be part of kind of the continuing efforts around reopening. And you can learn more about the guidance on what is allowed where at coronavirus.dc.gov. And I think that will be based on metrics of health and others as we move along. I will say, as it relates to the comp plan, there is a section called Community Services and Facilities, which really speaks to things like rec centers, fields, our need for libraries, and there is the contemplation of the needs to make sure that we can accommodate the various recreational needs of our city, of our residents. And so at a high level and in the long term, that is part of the comprehensive plan. One thing I'll say that when we think about long term, one thing that's proposed in the comprehensive plan is a kind of coordinated effort around planning for our fields. And our planning for our civic infrastructure, whether it is fields, whether it is rec centers, schools, making sure that we're aligning the needs of our city with the facilities we have with the needs of our residents. And that's something that we're particularly excited to work to. To the commissioner's point, it actually then it can help us make better decisions around infrastructure investments and capital investments in the future. But as it relates to the specific guidance in reopening and coronavirus, your best place to go is coronavirus.dc.gov. Anita, do you have anything? Okay. I have a question from Commissioner Douglas in Ward 7. Commissioner Douglas, you're on.
Yes, how y'all doing? I was just hope the mayor and everybody's safe and well, and that's my concern. My concern was, will we be able to have this information out to the commissioners? Because now that we have the COVID-19 and the lives on vacation, and plus the city council be going on vacation. So when will this be available for us to have? Because we don't have access to download or print out all this information that's needed. So another concern that we're having in Deanwood, Ward 77003, is about the defunding of the Macmillan project. A lot of residents weren't involved in a lot of to address these concerns, and here in Deanwood as well. So I heard you say you're going to start from the ground up to make sure that it happens. But we wish you would appreciate that. And it seems like the developers have it more say-so than the community. So we want to make sure that that does not happen.
Thank you, Commissioner, for the question. And I will turn over to Anita in 1 second to specifically speak to how you can access this information and what we can provide you, especially ANCs, to make sure you have what's needed. But I will say that it's worth kind of remembering or worth saying that our our public review of the kind of draft was put out in October, and really with a focus on hearing from ANCs. We wanted to make sure that ANCs were providing feedback, had the information they needed. We went to dozens of ANC meetings. This was back in the time where you could actually go to ANC meetings, and talked to commissioners, provided information, and wielded and received numerous ANC resolutions, which are actually all available on plan.dc.gov, that we provided responses to. So it is worth noting that we do want to make sure it is community-driven, and ANCs were and still are a critical stakeholder in that. But Anita, if you're a community member, a business person, but especially an ANC, and you have trouble accessing this, what's the best strategy?
So the best strategy would really be to get in touch with us. You can, again, email us at complanupdate@dc.gov. If there's challenges related to email, or if you'd prefer to talk with someone, you can call the office 202-442-7600, and you will get routed to a staff member who can assist you and find out what specifically you need as it relates to the comp plan materials and resources. We have for those of you who have access to our website, again, PlanDC@dc.gov has many of the most up-to-date information that's outside of the legislative process, and so would encourage you all to visit there. But contact us directly, especially ANC commissioners. As Andrew mentioned, it was an ANC-centric process for our public feedback round, and we expect to actually be sending some email correspondence to ANCs to give you an update of where things stand very shortly. So we would appreciate hearing from those for whom there may need to be a different way of getting to you other than your email.
Thank you. I will remind anyone, this will be probably the last reminder, that if you have a question, please do press 0 on the call, or so that's that. So I apologize to this next person who's calling in. I may butcher your name, but I will try the best I can. Talibdin in Ward 4, and please tell me how to pronounce your name. You're on the line.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. First of all, Director Trueblood, I want to thank you for moderating this process. The question is this: with WMATA planning to introduce 55,000 square feet of commercial space at a newly designed bus barn on 14th Street, what can we do as affected commercial property owners to expedite this process for our 2 blocks located directly across the street? We are scheduled to go from MU3 to MU4, but we are at a significant disadvantage because of the time loss that we've had, and we're not going to be able to compete with 55,000 square feet of new commercial space, not to mention the Kennedy Street redevelopment that's going on less than a quarter mile from us.
So thank you for the question. I think I will try and answer as best I can. To your point, the comprehensive plan does have an impact on individual projects, but much of what we're focusing on is the high-level, long-term. I do know that as it relates to the bus garage that you mentioned, there was a planning effort, actually, a small area plan that was put together maybe 10 years ago or so, that did, I think it was heard from the community, the desire to kind of strengthen the commercial corridor along that area. And there was really a direct kind of recommendation to make sure that if and when the bus barn was rebuilt, that it wasn't just another bus barn, but that there was activation in a way with the idea that it would actually create more commercial opportunities and support the businesses around it. And so I think that is what you see, that effort was in a small area plan. As with, I think there's about a dozen small area plans that we then took and incorporated into the comprehensive plan update so that they can be official kind of law of the city, if you will. And those small area plans, both their recommendations are included in it, but also we updated the future land use map for it. So I think that, at a high level, I could speak to that. Anita, I don't know if you have anything to add in terms of the question.
The only thing I would add is that it just feels like this underscores the importance of really taking a look at your area element and seeing in your neighborhood where there might be some sets of recommendations that come from a small area plan or broader citywide policy guidance as it relates to a corridor. And it also underscores the importance of, again, having heeding to a timeline of this year being able to complete the adoption process for the comprehensive plan.
The final thing that I'll say, as the caller mentioned, a change in zoning. Obviously, any change in zoning goes through the zoning commission, but we're always interested in making sure that residents weigh in on that. And so, insofar as there are any, zoning questions, we compare those to the comprehensive plan, and we're very interested in hearing, oftentimes from residents around where those opportunities are to make sure that we align with the comprehensive plan. So that's another thing. And then finally, I'll just mention it is WMATA. I know that they're going through a process. I strongly encourage you to engage with them and their process as they do their redevelopment of the property. So it looks like that is it for the lines. There are no more questions. Maybe I want to give our guests, if you have any final thoughts given our discussion today. I want to give you one final opportunity to share any thoughts or ideas. So maybe I'll turn to Colleen.
Thanks. No, we're just looking forward to working with you in the future and advancing these initiatives. It's been extremely helpful for the business community so far, particularly through this COVID.
Great. Thank you. And Commissioner?
Well, I would like to offer that we take advantage of this unique opportunity to do a community-based bottom-up planning process in Ward 8 and really get behind it to not only serve as a model for the rest of the neighborhoods in D.C., but I think on a national level, we can create a model in Ward 8 that can help shape how other communities deal with issues related to gentrification and just the changing climate that we're in now. So I'm excited about that, and I look forward to continue to work with the mayor and the planning department and other departments to make this a possibility.
Thank you, Commissioner. And may I add to that, I'll just remind everybody, also working with the council, especially because the comp plan is in their hands right now for review and approval. And I know that they want to hear the voices of the community. So that is, if you want to know what you can do, please feel free to reach out to your council member or anyone on the committee of the whole, which is any council member, which is where this will be considered. You can learn more, as we have mentioned a few times, about the comp plan at plan.dc.gov. And as always, for all of the dirt work, you can learn more at coronavirus.dc.gov/recovery. So I want to thank you all for joining us today. We will be here next week with Commissioner Woods of the Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking, her team, and a few community guests to discuss the DC Business Capital or BizCap program that provides capital to District of Columbia small businesses and entrepreneurs through 3 programs that provides alternatives to traditional commercial financing, to the Commissioner's point, so you might want to join, to facilitate private lending and investments to District small businesses. So that will be quite a good discussion. Also, it's worth noting, for those who are diehard weekly subscribers, we will be taking a break on the weeks of September 1st and 8th. So after next week, we will then be seeing you the middle of September. More information about this town hall will be posted, as I mentioned, at coronavirus.dc.gov/recovery. I hope you all have a safe, healthy, and socially distant weekend, and remember to mask up. Thank you.